Brian P. Swift's about to put out a new book here, Developing True Grit. So let's get him up here too. So Swifty, I was going back through your old books. At the end of the book, you talk about all your other books. So I want to get that. I want to get that. The children's book you did with the other lady. I want to get a little thing in the book to highlight that as well. So, okay, Clubhouse, publishing, podcasting, and social media. We got Tom. We got our man, Brian P. Swift. If our friend Terry wants to come up, Terry, you're welcome. One of the things we do in this room as the room grows, we invite. Tom did a good job with this last week. We had like almost 200 people in at one point, and a lot of them were new to the room. And we don't always go over how the room works. So basically, this is a safe place, meaning we invite everybody up. We talk about their questions. It could be, well, like I was telling Tom, if anybody sees that we're live streaming this, I don't know a lot about microphones. I used to wear this big headset when I did like podcast interviews and stuff. I liked the headset. I could hear. I thought I sounded good. Now I think it's clicking, so I'm in between mics. I don't know what to do. Tom said he doesn't necessarily like the headphones with the big ears on them. So we started this dialogue, and here's a guy that knows a little bit more about it than I know. I help people publish books. I don't necessarily know the intricacies of headphones. And that's why we do a room like this, so we can get a guy like Tom that knows about this, or Brian speaking and coaching and writing books and doing podcasts. So we get all these different people in this place and then hit these subjects. So we'll start with you, Tom. We'll meet our buddy Brian. Let's get Jess up here. We haven't seen her for a while. So do your thing, Tom.
So I my reaction to like the big like over the ear headphones that you often see people wearing in a couple of different situations. Like, they're the kind of headphones that you'll often see people wearing in a radio situation. You'll see DJs wearing headphones like that. I also kind of cheekily said to Dom that it kind of looks like you're taking orders at a drive-through when you have one of those, when you have the over the ear with like the headphone, like or the microphone coming down across your cheek, down by your mouth. My real issue with those is aesthetic more than technical, right? And the aesthetics matter, and here's why they matter. They matter because they can be distracting, right? And ultimately, when you're in an audiovisual medium, right, especially in a talk or conversational setting like what we've created here and what this live stream is, right? That, by the way, for folks coming into the room, we're live streaming currently on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. And we do that every week. This is the way, as they say in The Mandalorian, but this is the way we do the room every week. But yeah, it's more of an aesthetic thing. Like, distractions you want to minimize, because ultimately you want people to pay attention to what you're saying, right? And not be focused on other things going on around you. What are you listening to? What are you hearing in those headphones? Why are you wearing those headphones? Why it's covering part of your face. I wonder what, other parts of your face look like. So it's that kind of distraction that you're trying to avoid. And the other thing too, to help bring the audience in, is to present yourself very much akin to how you would present yourself in your day-to-day life, right? I think that matters. You want to be relatable. You want to seem like somebody, especially in an audio video format that's talk, where it could be, something like a podcast that has a video component to it. Especially if it's conversational with a group of people like this space is. You want the people watching it, right, or the people consuming the content, to feel like they're a part of it, to feel like they could be in the room with you, right? And so you want to present yourself the way you would present yourself in everyday life, right? And you wouldn't walk around wearing those headphones and having conversations with people. Often you would walk around wearing those headphones because you were trying to avoid having conversations with people, right? They're kind of a visual cue that you don't want to hear what somebody coming up to you has to say, right? And so yeah, so for kind of all of those reasons, that mishmash of reasons, I just generally don't like headphones. In fact, like if you'll notice, for anybody who's ever watched this live stream or anybody who's been in the room but hasn't checked out the live stream, check out the live stream. You'll be able to actually see what Dom and I look like outside of our little pictures on Clubhouse. But and I apologize in advance for what I'm presenting on my side. But 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 the truth is that kind of what you see is what you get, right? And that's for anybody checking out the live stream, you'll notice that I don't wear headphones of any kind. There's nothing in my ears, and that's very much on purpose. I don't like wearing headphones when I'm talking to people, right? It's just a personal preference thing, and I find them distracting. Even if I have in-ear headphones, you can still see them, and it's still a little bit distracting, right? This is how, if you were to run into me on the street, this is how you would run into me. I very likely would be wearing a hoodie because I wear hoodies all the time when it's cooler out. It's the fall in the Northeast. It's cool outside. I very often wear hoodies. I always have my hat on, right? As anybody who knows me knows, I always have my brand hat on, my Talex hat. So yeah, this is what you would get if you ran into me, and that's very much on purpose. I want people to feel like they could always come up to me, that I'm very approachable, and that talking to me on Clubhouse is just like talking to me in real life. And Dom can attest to that. I think, like, we've had lots of conversations outside of this space, and I'm just me, no matter where I am. And that's what you see is what you get. What you hear is what you get. And that's kind of how I like to always keep things. So it got a little bit bigger than just headphones, but yeah, no big over the ear headphones, please.
Oh, thank you. And funny, when I wore them, and what you're saying sounds. When I wear them because I can't hear other things around, and then I thought they looked funny. I'm one that I will sacrifice at some point for subtle humor. You know what I mean? Like, and subtle humor is not necessarily what you should be going for when presenting yourself. But I thought it's a whole thing, and I didn't mind it. Mr. Brian P. Swift, what do you think about people showing up different than how they truly are? I knew this would get Brian shot out of a cannon, so I wanted to go to him on this. I'm talking, you see one thing and then you meet him and the picture's completely different and it's like some whole other person. And you're like, wait a minute, who's this person? What do you think about that, Brad?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you automatically you question their authenticity, even the words that come out of their mouth. You've met me in person, Dom. We've talked over the phone a ton. We've Zoomed, and I am who I am. Um, I think I think some people are uncomfortable, maybe, or not just uncomfortable, but they're trying to be people who they are. Let me think the best way to put this. They're trying to create a perception of who they think they should be, and they're so worried about that they maybe even almost forget who they really are. And I've never tried to be anybody different. I am who I am. I am so comfortable with myself, even being in a wheelchair. And I think some people find that, I don't want to say frightening, but puzzled. Uh, you are who you are. At the end of the day, if you're online and you present yourself with all these filters, if you talk a certain way, I guess ultimately you got to go home and look in the mirror and answer to that person staring back. And even though there are times I don't like to answer to that person, I might not even like that person in the mirror. I'm okay with it, because we're perfectly imperfect, and either you like me for who I am or not. And I guess I became very comfortable with that years ago. I'm complete.
Brian, what advice would you give for somebody to get more comfortable in their own skin. Maybe they're switching careers and feel like they have this. You hear this on these apps a lot of times. This word, imposter syndrome. How would you help people get comfortable in their own skin?
Wow, great question. I think I would have to find out the root of their uncomfortability, if that's a word. I'd have to find out why they're uncomfortable, because I don't think any of us totally are 100% fine with ourselves. Uh, and I think you have to find out why and what that discomfort is with being genuine. Who are you ultimately trying to please? And find out where that discomfort comes, and then deal with that individually, because I don't think I could paint this with a broad brush as to why people. I mean, I think we all want to look our best, and we all want to present ourselves the best. And man, I'd love a picture of me, 30 pounds lighter, with more hair. I mean, I would like that, but that's just not who I am at this moment. The great news for me is I don't, I, you know, I can control some of that. I could become 5 pounds lighter by next week. The hair thing, it is what it is. I could put on a hat, things I could do, or just be who I am. So I'm comfortable with who I am, uh, despite the imperfections. So I think people should write down why they feel a need to present themselves differently, and then deal with those issues. And if they're struggling with those issues, man, you guys, both Tom and you, Dominick, present a great forum here, and I'm sure there's a lot of insights, because Dom, I know you've always been very real with who you are. I've met you and whatnot, and I believe Tom is too. Uh, is who he is. I mean, I see him on LinkedIn and watched his transformation from the guy you see here to this wee thinner guy as he prepares for his Ironman, or his major accomplishments that he's working on in terms of that physical mental push with, I'll call him Ironman. Not in time out, it's maybe not the right word, but I watch your videos, and wow, your transformation's amazing, and the commitment it takes to do that is uh, unless you've been through something like that. And the biggest thing I've trained for is a triathlon, a sprint triathlon. So nowhere near anything as big, but it takes a lot of grit. So congratulations on even training for that. Um, and accomplishing it is even a bigger task. So I know I've strayed. So that's it. Write down why, why you're not comfortable being who you are, and I think attack each one of those daily. I'm complete.
Thanks, Brian. You're 100% right. The race that I was training for in August was an Ironman race. It was a full distance Ironman, so 140.6, 140.6 mile race. Yeah, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it. It's been an interesting journey for myself too. In fact, I saw somebody last night. I ran into a friend last night who I haven't seen in person in months. And she took one look at me and said, "Oh my God, dude, eat a cheeseburger." And and I literally had just had a cheeseburger for dinner. So it was hilarious because she was saying it as kind of a turn of phrase, and I was able to look at her and say, "I just did." It's not like I'm not eating. It's just that I'm exercising so much. It's actually first world problems. It's hard to maintain weight. Like, in fact, eating has become a little bit of a chore some days because I have to eat so much, and I don't want to. I'm eating when I'm not hungry just to get calories in, which is a little bit crazy. Maybe just puts in perspective how insane my sort of athletic goals have gotten. But yeah, currently I'm training for a marathon, so that'll be in December, and the goal there is to run under 3.5 hours, which is a very lofty goal. I may or may not accomplish it, but I believe in setting goals that are kind of a coin toss that you may or may not accomplish, because I think your goals should be outsized. And to quote a friend of mine from the title of his book that's coming out, my friend Will Guidara from high school is putting out a new book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And he, to kind of borrow from his title, I think we should all be a little bit more unreasonable in the things we're trying to accomplish in a good way. Right?
Tom, I would have said have a double cheeseburger.
I had a single cheeseburger and chips and salsa, and then a brownie, and then when I got home, I had coffee cake and a couple of Snickers bars to make sure I hit my calories for the day. So yeah, it's like it's kind of ridiculous. It's a little bit crazy.
And for your goals, I agree with you. I mean, your goals should scare you, almost.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't scare you, maybe they're not big enough.
Yeah, they should be audacious, right? I have another friend who believes in setting big, audacious goals. And yeah, I think your goals should be audacious. They should be outsized. They should be unreasonable. Like my goal, my professional goal is to humanize the way business is done, right? And I don't mean like a specific kind of business in a specific industry or I mean business relationships between businesses. The relationships between businesses and their customers should be humanized, right? And that's my goal. Am I ever going to accomplish that goal fully? Absolutely not, right? But I should work towards it every day, because the more I work towards it, the more days I spend working on that goal, the closer I'm going to get to it, and the closer I'm going to get to realizing it. So the more possible it becomes, right? So I'm never going to accomplish that fully, but I also am guaranteed to not accomplish it even partially if I never try, right? So yeah, and that's actually, it kind of brings me to, Dom, I mentioned something I wanted to talk about right before we got on. And it was something that came to mind. It was motivated by something personal and a post that I saw from another friend of mine on Instagram. And that's the sort of power of mindset, right, when it comes to accomplishing things. And what I wanted to talk about was, I think there's a common misperception when it comes to mindset, a sort of misinterpretation of or misunderstanding of how mindset can be powerful. And that is that, I often, and I literally, in a podcast this morning when I was out on a run, I heard somebody talking about this, or I listened to a conversation about this, and they were talking about the power of manifestation, right? They were talking about saying something out loud and then it coming true. And I think where the disconnect for me is in that perception, the disconnect is that just saying it out loud doesn't make it true, right? Saying it out loud shapes your mindset, right? And shaping your mindset, right, to believing that it's possible creates opportunity for it to come true, right? It doesn't mean that you don't put in the work. I could stand in front of a mirror every day from now until the marathon on December 4th and say, I'm going to run a sub 3:30. But if I don't put the work in training, I will never accomplish that goal. It doesn't matter how many times I say it, right? But if I believe it, if I say it enough that I believe it, then that creates the possibility for me to do the work to accomplish the goal, right? Then I see that goal as possible, but I still have to do the work to get there. The flip side of that is, if I don't believe it, if I don't say that goal out loud, if I don't set that goal, if I don't believe that it's possible for me to run a 3:30, then I will never put the work in, because I won't see it. I won't create that opportunity for myself. I won't see it as possible. I won't put the work in, and I'll never accomplish it. And the analogy that I was using in a conversation yesterday was, think of it as like a door, right? We all have a door. We go through doors all the time, right? We have a door on the front of our house or the front of our apartment or wherever we live, right? So think of that front door, right? And what mindset does is it changes that door from a locked door to an unlocked door. It doesn't open the door. It doesn't carry you through the door. It simply turns the deadbolt so that you have the opportunity to open that door if you want to, right? So that was kind of what I wanted to, what was on my mind, was that power of mindset and how it creates opportunity, not that it creates outcomes, right? You create the outcome, the mindset creates the opportunity for you to create that outcome. And I wanted to see what everybody else thought about that, or how they've applied that in their own lives. So that was what I was thinking of, Dom, before we hopped on here.
Okay, this is a great subject to go down. I was talking to my boy Kyle. He has Unleash Your Champ. He has that podcast, and that's what they talk about, that kind of thing. And I'm thinking about this. Oftentimes in life, we come from a situation where people don't know what's possible. They've never seen it done, and so they think, well, why me? Why could I do this? Why could I accomplish that? I have I'm supposed to speak to a college basketball team soon, and I was thinking a lot of people tell these kids like you can't make the NBA or you can't do this. And sure, a million won't. The odds are against you. But in this world, I'm going to get up, and I'm thinking about how I wanted to start, and I want to say you can do, and I'll clean my language up at that point. But I want to say you can accomplish whatever the F you want to accomplish. But to Tom's point, you have to put in the work. Are you currently working the hardest? Are you working harder than anybody else? Are you here first? Are you here later? Well, then if not, you don't deserve it. But if you're willing to put in the work for not just a day, for not just a month, what is the goal? How long are you willing to work to get what you want? So let's talk to some people here. Clubhouse, publishing, podcasting, social media. We do this every week. We haven't talked to enough people yet. We got Jess, we got Joyce, we got Prof T, Julie, Kyle. Magnificent. Jess, where do you stand on all this? Welcome back. I missed you, Jess. How are you doing?
Good morning, guys. Missed you guys as well. I'm doing fine. I'm just here to listen. I've actually, it's a good topic, so I'm just here to listen. I I'm back in the workforce, but I still am doing what I'm doing. But I'm in the education space now, and it's kind of giving me a bigger view of just kind of reprioritizing, reshaping my own life, reshaping my personal and my professional life. So I'm honestly here just because I miss hearing y'all guys and to support y'all. And I'll just land my plane there.
Hey, Jess, we appreciate you being here. If it's for 5 minutes, if it's for an hour, whatever. Somebody told me the other day he was starting a show, a podcast about media, about publishing, about all this stuff. I'm like, oh, you should come by the room sometime. And he said, well, I work a day job. I do creep in that room from, like, he watches the live stream while he's at work sometime. So I think for people that haven't been on Clubhouse or don't understand social audio, or wondering what the heck's what this experiment is, it is a great place to meet people, to network, to get with like minds. Sometimes you can only be there for 5 minutes, like a radio. You're driving down to see your mom and she lives 5 minutes down the road. You only got 5 minutes. Sometimes you're going on a longer trip and you can stay a little longer. Sometimes you need to focus on the road so you can't be at full attention. Well, we appreciate all those people, all those things. And okay, so let's go. We're going to reset, Tom, on the things we're talking about. So we talked about imposter syndrome. I wanted to talk about constructive criticism. We were talking about, let's see how you framed the question, Tom. How did you frame the question that you just asked to go on?
Well, it was more of a topic. I wasn't specifically asking a question, but I guess like the power of mindset, and like I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts and how they use mindset to accomplish goals in their own lives, right? How do people employ the power of mindset to create opportunity for themselves to accomplish their goals?
Well, we have some great ones in the room here for that. So Joyce, you're first, then Prof T, Julie, come on. And then as we go around, you can always flash your mics, and if you want to jump in, do your thing. So Joyce, have at it.
Good morning. So I just returned from a 300-mile bike ride through the mountains of Greece. So that was all about mindset and motivation, and I'm a 57-year-old, middle-aged woman. So I think part of the issue with imposter syndrome is you just got to grow up. At some point, you're just become an elder and you're like, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be. And I'm going to be a role model for others. So that's kind of where I am. And the mindset, I will say, I live in Massachusetts. We do not have mountains here. And I could not even have trained. I did train, but I couldn't really have trained for the 4.5 mile uphills that we did in Greece, which I'd never seen anything like it. But it was in my head. I did mantras. I sang to myself. I did some swearing along the way, and I got myself to the top of that hill every day. And it was really empowering, and it made me feel kind of superhuman. And now I'm back in Massachusetts. I'm doing my cannabis podcast. We've just launched season 4, which again, I couldn't have imagined this 5 years ago as a middle-aged divorce attorney that I would now be, the voice of women in cannabis. And sometimes you just have to see yourself there, and it is all about the work. It is really just about every day getting up and doing it and being whatever it is you have to be that day, and just one day at a time, like going up that hill. So that is where I am with manifestation and overcoming your imposter syndrome.
Joyce, way to break it down. Thank you very much. One step at a time. And I love this idea of each of you up here on the bottom, down in the, I don't know what you call that, in the queue. But think about how far you are today compared to where you were 5 years ago, and any of these goals that you have. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to step out of this comfort zone. So let's meet our friend Prof T. How you been, Prof T?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
We're good now that we see you. Where do you stand on all this?
So where do I stand on all this? Well, I go back and forth with this imposter syndrome because I find that lately I'm feeling like it's not a thing. Because I think it's just a real jargony, attention getting topic. But I think that for me, imposter syndrome, I would say, is, this is just my own personal opinion. If you are trying to be someone you're not, then yeah, I think you would suffer from imposter syndrome. I like to stay in my lane, and I use this analogy a lot. If I'm going to look for a dentist, I want the dentist to have nice teeth, a nice smile. If I'm looking for a therapist, I want the therapist to be specific in an area of expertise. So I think if you stay in your lane, you won't suffer from imposter syndrome. We all have bad days. I wake up and I go, I'm really not who I think I am. But at the end of the day, I know what I know and I stay with what I know and where I am. And even though we have a bad hair day, we get up the next day and we still do our best, be our best. And that's where I'm going to leave the imposter syndrome. And as far as mindset, well, yeah, you know what? I think if you've read The Secret, you'll know that the law of attraction is sort of, I think, mindset, right? And there's so many of us over the years who sitting in our little tiny room with our collage of things we want: the house, the boat, the car, the perfect, the love person. We want it all. And we make these little pictures and we're sitting here and we're looking in the mirror and we're high-fiving ourselves and we're smiling. And then, we go out into the real world and people have bills to pay and you haven't fed your kitty cat, you haven't gotten dressed in the last few days because you're exhausted or you're depressed. And I think that that's when the rubber meets the road. And I do believe that, you're all talking about runs and bike riding and championships. What do you do? What do you do on day 12? After you've sat in your room and meditated and talked about your wonderful goals, what do you do on day 113? What do you do on day 472? That's where the mindset kicks in. So all of those things I believe are important, and you have to store them up in your subconscious, and you have to train your mind to know and to believe that is coming. So that's all I'm going to say about that. It is my jam. Love talking about mindset. Listen, yeah, I just didn't wake up one day and I'm all happy and peppy. It's been a long trail of blood, sweat, and tears. And don't let anybody tell you that you can have it right now. It just ain't true. And I prefer to link arms with people who have blood, sweat, and tears, skin in the game. Those are my peeps. Thank you very much. Prof T, back to you.
Thanks, Prof T. Appreciate that. Always appreciate your perspective and you being here in the room. I just wanted to talk about imposter syndrome a little bit because I think, it really kind of depends on, I guess, how you define it, right? But to me, like when we talk about imposter syndrome, at least when I talk about imposter syndrome, I'll really hone in on that, right? When I talk about imposter syndrome, what I mean is thinking that you are undeserving of the sort of praise or respect that other people give you, right? That's kind of what I think of as imposter syndrome, and thinking that you are undeserving of sort of being proud of or touting your own accomplishments, right? So here's an example of how I've kind of had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in talking about my life and my story and my career. And that is that I was talking when I first started my business about 3.5 years ago. I've been in production for 21 years plus. But 3.5 years ago is when I sort of officially kind of left the entertainment industry behind and set out on my own with this new mission to work with businesses and help them communicate more effectively. And when I did that, I was talking to somebody who was a new acquaintance in the business space, who had who owns a PR firm, and she and I were talking, and she had looked at my website, and in the course of conversation, something came up. I forget how it came up, but it came up that I had been nominated for an Emmy Award twice, and she like slammed on the brakes on the conversation and said, whoa, 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 whoa. You've been nominated for an Emmy. And I said, yes. And she said, twice. And I said, yes. And she said, and why is that not on your website? And I was like, well, I don't want to brag about it. And she was like, no. That's not bragging. That's just biography, right? You're not bragging if you say in your biography that you are a 2-time Emmy Award nominee, right? That's just a statement of fact. You are not saying it to say you're better than anybody else. You're not comparing yourself to anybody else. So you're not bragging. You are just making a statement of fact. And it's something that to this day, I have a hard time sort of talking about in conversation. I genuinely feel uncomfortable right now talking about this, saying this, right? But I pushed past that and I battle through that because I know it's important that I kind of stand in who I am, my accomplishments, what I've done, and give people a sense of really how I've come to think the way I think, how I've come to do the things that I do, to give a really, a full color commentary on my sort of background and my biography, right? And really owning who I am. But it's hard to do. And that's what I talk about when I talk about imposter syndrome. And I think like that's the thing that comes to mind for me is the difficulty that a lot of people have sort of owning that. And the way I think about it too is like I've been fortunate enough in my life because of my career, because of the opportunities that have been presented to me and that I've taken advantage of. I've been fortunate to have some really amazing, incredibly cool experiences. But I often forget kind of how outlandish some parts of my life have been because it's just, to me, it's just my life, right? It's the only one I've ever known. So like I offhandedly will mention the time that I pet a cheetah in Kenya. And people are like, I'm sorry, you did what? And I'm like, yeah, I was there for work and I got to pet a cheetah in Kenya, as you do. Right. But like, that's the only truth I know. So it's like, sometimes it's hard for me to realize that that's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. Yeah, but anyway, that's what I meant, talking about imposter syndrome, and like that's something that I battle with all the time. And I hope, at the very least, thank you for listening. And I hope me sharing that, maybe helps somebody else kind of feel a little bit more comfortable owning their accomplishments and owning their accolades and truth of who they are. But yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to chime in with that. But thank you so much, Prof T, for sharing here and for being here and supporting this space. Really appreciate you.
Excellent, guys. This is Room Clubhouse, publishing, podcasting, social media. We do it every Wednesday. We have a club. Follow the club. We won't overwhelm you. You get a notification here and there saying we're having a room. We're going to hit Julie, but first, Brian, you flashed your mic there a second.
You're
I
going to hit
think.
me, Dominick?
I would never. So let me correct this. We will skip to Julie, but Brian flashed his mic. So Brian, was there something you wanted to add?
No, go ahead.
All right, Julie, Brian is a gentleman. He's saying ladies first. To Chicagoans, you got to get Julie. You have to go in. Hey, here's what I want. Flash, if you think that Julie should go in studio and be on Brian's show in Chicago. Now she has to travel outside and actually go in studio. Okay, let's see if we can.
That would be so fun.
Let's
But
make
Brian
it.
hasn't invited me.
Oh, Brian wants you there.
Oh, are you speaking for him?
I'm saying I heard you ghosted him. That's all I'm saying.
I never would ghost
In
Julie,
Halloween spirit. Go on, Brian.
Let me cut in here, Julie.
Yes.
If you would like to come to my show, All Things Inspirational, WJOL 1340 AM, it is on every Wednesday at 12:05.
Okay.
Out of Crest Hill. It's got a very good reach. The station has been around for 93 years. My program has been around now going on 9 months. You are more than welcome to come on.
There we go. There's the invite. Okay.
To come on in and have a seat next to the Quadfather, and we can
I'd love
talk about
that.
some inspiration.
I would love that. Thank you. There is the invitation, and invitation accepted. You'll just have to tell me what Wednesdays you're open, and we'll figure out a date.
From here, you pick the Wednesday. I don't have to.
All right, enough of this. We don't care about your personal schedules. I'm going to kick you both out. That's too much. No.
I'm gonna pull my calendar up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, pull. Let us know, Julie. Okay, where do you stand on all this stuff that we're talking about today?
It's a great conversation, and I've been listening. I can resonate with everything everyone's chatting about. I was manifesting before I even knew what manifesting is. The one reason, because I would take action. I'm an idea person, and when I think of an idea, I'm like, okay, let's try it. And if it works out, calculated risks, if you will. So, for example, the beginning of the year, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start speaking on stages. I'm going to get over my fear of speaking on stages in front of real people. And so I just did it. But here is the problem. Okay. So I do all this, and I'll take all your advice. This is going to be very dramatic, and I'm going to really appreciate all your brain power here today. So I do it, and then I find myself like undervaluing my services, and doing so much for free, which I love to help people out. That's the thing. But I find myself, and I'm trying to course correct a little bit, because, you look at your resume, your pedigree, your experience, and I'm like, I know I undervalue myself. So I'm going to just leave that out there for everybody. Just jump in and give me their thoughts if you want to. Otherwise, we can just go straight to magnificence.
I'll jump in on that. That's almost, Tom, your definition of imposter syndrome, because not putting out your entire resume, let's call it, is basically undervaluing yourself to some degree. And I'm like you, Julie. I think I undervalue myself also to a big degree. And there's just some things that a lot of people don't know about me. And I'm not sure exactly why it is that I don't make some of these things more known. It's not because I'm ashamed of them, not because I'm worried about what they'll think. I think we all have a little bit of that in us. Dominick, is there something about you that you don't tell people that would correlate with what we're talking about?
Well, I don't think we need to skip to me here, but I think always. I think sometimes people bring stuff up and you're like, oh, I really don't want to talk about that. Or I'm a big believer in not allowing the left hand to know what the right hand's doing in life. And sometimes that might, people be like, well, you didn't even talk about this or that. So I hear you, Brian. Continue. But we, we lost Magnificent in the process here. We said we were about to go to her next, and she jumped off. Tom, where do you stand on Brian's question? Is there something?
I was answering a chat real quick, and I actually missed the question. So say the question again for me if you could, Brian, and I'll answer.
Well, I was referring to your definition of imposter syndrome, and I said I think all of us have things, whether they're accomplishments or things about us that we leave off our, let's call it, resume, like your 2 nominations. And sometimes I don't know if there's an exact reason for that, because I'm sure you're not embarrassed about it. I'm sure you're very proud of being nominated twice. I'm sure you're not worried about maybe what people think, but I think we all do that. So I had asked Dom, is there something he has on his resume or has done that he doesn't let people know?
Well, I'm not going to speak for Dom. She probably does, I would guess, but because most of us do. But I'll tell you why I have trouble with that. Like why the specific reason that I've identified, and this is in no way. I don't want this in any way to be taken as accusatory because it's not. But when I was a kid, my parents would always would anytime I was boastful, right, would always tell me not to brag. No one likes a braggart, right? And they were right, but I think where they kind of and their intentions were always good. So like that's what I mean. This is in no way meant to be accusatory, right? Their intentions were absolutely the best. They didn't want me to think that it was okay to walk around in society tooting your own horn, right? Because it's really not, right? But they didn't really. I think where it missed was they didn't draw a clear line for me or help me understand really definitionally what the difference was between giving a whole accounting of your experience and history and biography and just being truthful and stating fact versus when it comes to accomplishment versus being boastful and bragging, right? Because there is a difference. And I think, if I could rewind the clock and ask a specific question, that's what I would ask them is, okay, what's the difference between just saying something I'm proud of? Like, how do I say something I'm proud of without bragging, without being boastful? Right. But that's why I do that 100%. I would bet money on it that's exactly wise because I was told as a child, no one likes a braggart, right? Don't be boastful. Don't brag.
I agree.
So yeah, I mean, it's something, I think a lot of us battle with because a lot of us were told that by our parents, right? Dom, did your parents ever say that to you?
And I'm going to pronounce the word. My mom said, "Where is that pin?" And she said she's going to pop my head like a balloon anytime that I got boastful. But then on the other hand, I'm still in this world of, well, why do we need to tell everybody? What's the other than, can't they figure it out? Won't they find it? Why do I need to be the one with the trumpet out there saying, I mean, Joyce, what are your thoughts on this? Go on.
I mean, I think it has to do with the listener. Again, we don't hear everything. We don't see everything. I agree with the whole boastful thing. People who start telling me a list of stuff about themselves, I just don't hear it. And that, I think of it almost like anything we do in life. We want to feel like we discovered it ourselves. It makes it more powerful. It makes it more impactful. So if you create an authentic human being who is out there in the world and engaging in community, this is the other thing we don't talk a lot about, is how are you helping your community? what do you add to your value to your community. It's very cultural. And from there, other people can see you and discover something about you that might inspire them to learn more about you on their own. And that's more powerful. And that's sort of my take on it as a mom and as a person who tells her kids not to brag, and as a human being who I want to add value to this world, but I know it's not about me. I'm part of a bigger pattern of human beings who do their thing, and I'm adding value in my own way. And I want people to recognize that in the way they can see me, because it's really literally about perspective. So that's my 2 cents.
This leads me down a path, Joyce. Thank you. What do you think about you connect with somebody and within the next 5 minutes, they DM you with some deal that's going to change your life, a deal that basically I do this, 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 and this, and I can change your world. Where do you stand on that?
Dismiss
No
it.
thanks.
I need to know the person. Yeah.
Yeah, no, right. A hard no. But it's interesting because so many people sell services there are services that will make you look like an asshole to a lot of people, meaning they'll reach out and provide you with these. You can contact, uh, you can contact 10,000 people today with these quick messages, and we'll set you appointments. And then you get on an appointment and we're like, why are we even on this appointment? Because I don't know what's going on. But they're working on straight analytics saying, well, if I get you 10,000 qualified appointments, you're going to close one deal. So what does it matter? So this blows my mind, but I wanted to know you guys' thoughts on it. Anybody clap it up and you can tackle it.
They haven't earned the right to pitch a deal to you at that point. They don't know if you need it. They don't know anything about it, and they lose credibility almost instantly.
So true, but imagine these companies making a mint trying to get, hey, I'll get you these qualified leads. It's just so messed up. Go on, Tom.
So it's this quantity over quality mentality that leads to that, I believe, right? It's this idea that it's the cold calling ethos, right? It's the if I make 100 calls a day, I know that statistically 3 of those people are going to be receptive and one of them is going to end up buying, right? Like statistically, that's what bears fruit. And so the idea is, okay, well then you have to make 100 calls a day to make that sale every day. And the truth is that sure, you can do it that way, but you're going to end up burning a lot of bridges in the process, right? You're going to end up generating a lot of reactions like the one Brian just described, right? And so what I think people should do, what I think businesses should do, but I think specifically small businesses and people who are and salespeople, what you should do is actually do the thing that is necessary to developing a relationship that you can build business and exchange of value off of, and that is to give the people you're talking to a reason to care, to feel good about you and your business, right? Or your products and services, right? You have to give them a reason to feel good, right? And the easiest way to get someone to feel good about you is to give them something of value without expectation, with no strings attached, right? And I want everybody listening to this, just think of the last time somebody surprised you with a gift. It doesn't have to be anything big. It could have been just a cup of coffee that you didn't expect from a coworker, right? Or it could be, an extra serving of fries, at your favorite restaurant, or whatever, right? Whatever the case may be, a cold beer with a friend, right? That you didn't expect after work on a Friday, whatever the case may be, right? Whatever that thing is for you, think about how quickly you felt good about the person that gave you that gift. And they didn't give it to you saying, I'm going to give you this beer, but only if you buy my stuff, right? They gave it to you and said, here, enjoy. I hope this makes your Friday afternoon a little bit better. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you're here. Right? How quickly you felt good about that person, right? So that's what businesses need to do, is treat, and this is part of my whole this is my mission, right? Like that's why I'm getting excited about this. I don't know if you can hear that in my voice, but I'm sure Dom can see it as I'm talking. My hands are moving more and my head's moving around, but this is my mission, right? Like this is what I'm trying to do. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about humanizing the communication between businesses and their customers. Is businesses need to treat their customers like people, because they're people, right? And so you lead with value. I think that the onus is on businesses to lead with value, to give that gift without expectation, to create the opportunity for people to care about them, right? And then to build a relationship based on value exchange off of that initial feeling, right? Off of that initial gift. And yeah, so I think that's the way to do it, right? Is you lead with a gift, right? You lead with value. You start with that. That's your starting place. You create the opportunity for people to care about you, and then you move on to building a relationship, which may be a business relationship, right? That's a kind of relationship. But it's not one that we have to feel bad or dirty about. It's not one that we should have to hold our nose about, right? Like many of us do, I'm sure, when we click buy now on a certain website that we're all very familiar with, right? So, like, you know, I think it's important that we humanize these relationships, that we humanize this communication, and that we treat people like people, whether we encounter them in a business environment or in a personal environment, and we stop treating people like statistics. We stop making those 100 calls a day to get that one sale. Make one call, form a relationship, and then watch that blossom into 10 sales, right? Because you took the time to build that relationship and to give without expectation. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox. That's enough for right now. But as I'm sure you can tell, I could go on all day.
No, you're doing good. Okay, so where do we stand, Julie, Joyce, Brian, on leading with value? So go on, let's go. Julie, leading with value. Joyce, you put 2 exclamation points on, and Brian always leads with value. So Julie, if you want to weigh in, go ahead.
Well, you have to know your value first, right? But of course, it's a no-brainer, because that's how true relationships, no matter if it's personal or professional, it is about giving first, and then one day, if it's meant to be, if your value proposition fits with this other person's, then it'll be a love affair that stands the test of time.
Love affair. What a way to break down almost the sales process. This relationship building as a love affair. So nice angle on that. What would we call that? What would we call that? Analogy. We'll say analogy. Joyce, where do you stand?
All about adding value. That's my mantra. That's my motto. I ran for a local political position out here in Massachusetts. That was my tagline: adding value. And relationships are the center of everything, really. I mean, how can you even get around that? And the idea of a gift is so powerful. And I love that idea of giving them a gift and then seeing what happens from there. And I love giving gifts. It's empowering to me too. So all of it, adding value is the key.
Love this conversation about adding value. Well, how do we add value? How can you add value on social media? How can you add value in person? How can you connect? Well, what if I could connect Brian with Julie? What if I could connect Tom with somebody that might need his services or have friends that could use his services? What if? Go on, Tom.
I was just going to say, Dom, I don't want to rain on your parade here, but I'm going to pull you up short. How do you add value? Well, you do what we're doing right now, right? Like you create a room like this, you create the opportunity for conversation. We've been doing this for like a year. We dedicate an hour plus of every Wednesday morning to hosting this space. and we have community members that come back week after week. The same people we see over and over and over again, coming into this space, sharing their stories with us, giving their expert takes on things, sharing their expertise, asking questions, giving us the opportunity to share our value. Like, this is a way to do it. We're doing it right now, I believe. So you're muted there, buddy.
Okay, I got a text from my buddy Jim Ajay, and I'm trying to read it while I'm looking at the phone. So I'm gonna read what he sent. This is Jim. Jim's a sales guy, so he knows the game. Let's see if I can find the picture here. I just looked at it. Okay, arrogance requires advertising. Confidence speaks for itself. So well said. Arrogance, you need to advertise. Confidence speaks for itself. So thank you, Mr. Rogers. Oh, look, Jamie's clapping for you. Groot is clapping for you. You know what? Go on, Brian. What'd you have to say?
Well, to Jim's point and to your the question you kind of proposed earlier, sometimes it's not what's said, it's how it's said. And I think that could be the difference between arrogance and just telling your entire story of who you are. Is in the how, not the why.
Thank you, Brian. That's a good point. How are you doing it? Are you coming off respectful? Are you a pompous jerk? There's a lot of different ways to do it. One of the things about the adding value on social, I just wanted to touch on Julie real quick. She has, with MediaCasters puts out articles all the time. And these are valuable articles. If you read these articles, she's not asking you that you don't have to pay to read them. It might be on getting on stages. It might be on how to create a one sheet. It might be on how to sell more books. And you look at this and see the value in them. And so I look at them again. You'll see me on social media 24/7. My hope is that I add enough inspiration, enough motivation that maybe the next morning you look for that motivation, that you look for a story that will uplift you, that you maybe look for a book that has motivational content. If I can provide you with enough that you start to say, hey, when I'm looking for that, I might check out Motivation Champs. I might go into this room that they have on Wednesdays. So I try to give without the ask. Clubhouse, publishing, podcasting, and social media. We do it every Wednesday. We live stream. Tom, where are all the places we're live streaming? And then give us a quick lesson on how that happens.
Sure. So we're live streaming currently on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. And the way we do that is we use a web software platform called Restream Studio. And the cool thing, for those who aren't familiar, Restream Studio is essentially a streaming platform, right? So essentially, we have 3 video feeds that kind of come into this platform. So one from Dominick, one from myself, and one from a piece of software called OBS that I use to create the screen capture so that we can show the actual the folks in Clubhouse, right, and have them also heard on the live stream. And then what Restream allows you to do is simultaneously stream to a bunch of different platforms. And the cool thing is they allow channel pairing. So anybody that I invite into the live stream, right, into the Restream Studio, like Dominick, can pair the live stream with their social media channels and their platform channels as well. So we're streaming on my YouTube page, my YouTube channel, but also on Motivation Champs YouTube, right? We're streaming on my Facebook and also Motivation Champs Facebook, right? So there's opportunity. Like, that's one of the cool things about Restream Studio, is basically it takes these 3 video feeds, aggregates them into a single stream on one screen, and then broadcast them out across multiple platforms. And that's how we do this each week. So every week when we do this room, we also live stream it. And you know, the goal there again is to broaden the reach that we have and to bring more value to more people, right? So, you know, whether it's, you know, Joyce sharing her experience, Brian sharing his experience or his expertise, Julie sharing her experience and expertise, you know, anybody else that's a regular in this room. I know Jamie's been in here a bunch of times. You know, Prof T, who was up here before, is often in this room. So yeah. So for the folks that, you know, are here regularly, you know, our goal is to really share the value that we create in this room, in this space, with as many people as we can, right? And I 100% believe that there is opportunity built off of the back of doing good and not just grabbing attention for attention's sake, right? And I think more of us that you know, put attention on or put focus on doing good in the world, the more we amplify it, the more good we'll be able to do. So that's kind of the impetus behind what we're doing here. But yeah, that's how we do it in a nutshell. There's a bunch of technical stuff too, but in a nutshell, that's how we do it.
It's a starting point, Tom, and we appreciate you putting it all together for us and making it happen. We started the show earlier because on the live stream, I'm struggling with microphones. One of mine broke. We talked about I have a big set that covers my ears. Tom said he doesn't necessarily like the ones that cover your ears because he likes to appear how you would see him if you walk up to him in the street. We talked about being authentic. So we went down some paths today. So we got our friend Jamie. Jamie, you can ask a question, share a tip. You know all the things we're talking about here. So have at it. The floor is yours. Oh, we got a heart too. So go on, Jamie.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I look forward to my Wednesdays. Dom and Tom, they've been here for a long time. So if you haven't listened, the pointers and the gems, they're in here. If you can listen to replays, it's totally worth it. Clubhouse has brought so much more insight to me. I like doing podcasting and social media up in Canada, Alberta, really. Ghostbusters is filmed here. When that came out, I started just asking questions, meeting people, meeting directors and producers in Alberta. Then Clubhouse happened. And, you know, they blended together, and now I can't say more than the networking abilities on Clubhouse has turned my life like tenfold. But I'm Jamie Hill. I don't really have a question today. I'm here to support and share because you guys do give the gems, and I appreciate it. So I'm Jamie Hill, and I'm thankful.
Thank you, Jamie. We may give some gems, but it's you guys that come in, Joyce, Brian, Ibrahim, Julie, Prof T, that have the gems. Like Julie a couple of weeks ago talking about the Google Knowledge Panel. Who knew? And then if you have a Google Knowledge Panel, you have to confirm your Google Knowledge Panel. Sometimes we talk about TikToks and our buddy. What's our buddy's name from New York, Tom? The one that was in the ping pong player.
I'm so bad with names.
Why? I think it's. Does it start with a W? Anyway, the guy's a championship.
It does start with a W, and I am terrible with names, and I feel terrible now, and I'm gonna have to find. I can't believe I can't think of his name. Oh man,
That's your job. Look through it.
Yeah, I'll find it.
But here's a guy that comes on here and drops. He gets millions of views on TikTok, and he comes on and gives basic concepts on how to get more views. Do your video 3 times. Make sure you put captions. Last week in here we talked about captions. You never know where the subject might go, but it's all things that really you could leave here today and do one of these things, like with the snap of your fingers, and maybe change the trajectory of your business or your storytelling. So have at it. Our friend Ibrahim is in the house. I like to say Ibrahim is the best dressed in the place. I might change into a suit for my profile picture, thumbnail picture, just so I can compete with Ibrahim. How you doing, my friend? Where do you stand on all this?
Can you hear me?
Barely. You sound like you're on SpongeBob in a shell under the sea, man.
I'll be right back. Let me step out and come back in.
Okay, we got you. Yeah. What do they call it? Where did SpongeBob live? Bikini Bottom in a pineapple under the sea. Okay, go on, Ibrahim.
Yeah?
Yeah, you are out of your pineapple. Go on.
Okay, good. And if you hear background noise, I'm at the airport. I just got out of the plane and I knew the room that I'm supposed to come in is this room, Clubhouse podcasting, publishing, and social media. Greetings to you, Dominick, and everyone. I had an experience on Clubhouse a few weeks ago, and I just couldn't wait to come and share with you all and just get your thoughts about it. It's about some rooms that are mainly all women or all men room, and what are expectations around that? Because I got pinged into a room, and there was a great topic on the floor that was being discussed. And there were a few other men in the room, but predominantly women, because the room was mainly women room. But it seemed like men's voices were appreciated too. So I jump on stage and I share my feedback. And afterwards, the moderator or the owner of the room or the club just gave a brief feedback. But then she mentioned a completely different topic for the person who was coming after me. And it seemed like I was completely off, but I went because I just came into the room and I went by the title of the room. And I spoke about that because that's what the person ahead of me spoke about. So I was a little bit confused, and the other person who was third in line after me was a guy. He had been brought up on stage as well. And the moderator just said, well, we're about to close the room now, and so thank you, and something like that. My question, two questions. The first question is, are there any expectations if there's a room that's mainly, predominantly women room or male room, to get into those rooms and share or not? And two, what are maybe like one or two tips for anyone in the room who plans to host a room that they should consider? I know one of the things that come to mind is to every once in a while refresh the room or just to share what the room is about, so people who just came in can keep track with where the discussion is going. But this was just a weird situation that I experienced, and I just couldn't wait to share with you and see what you think. So that's it. Let me know what you think.
Well,
If I could have done something else different.
Ibrahim, I'd love to weigh in, and I'd love to hear from some other people in the room that host rooms and things like that. One, sometimes I'll go in a room because I don't know that it's a fem room, like then it says fem or the title something. Well, I just thought it was, I didn't know that it was an all women room. And sometimes there's rooms that are, it seems like for certain demographics only. I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to share my voice there or something like that. I just didn't know. I'm, in my world, I try to be, I'm hoping to be all inclusive, and I think we can all learn from each other. But I understand there's those rooms out there. So, Tom, Joyce, where do you stand?
Ask.
Well, let's go.
I'm not sure on what you're asking.
Well, so my question. So let's go, Ibrahim. Ibrahim saying some rooms have hidden rules, or are only for maybe all women, all men, all athletes, all. Uh, Brian hosted a room for people with disabilities at one point. Well, that doesn't mean there aren't advocates, that there aren't voices that want to be on the same team. Just because of, I'm going to go with it, just because of the color of my skin or because I'm a male or female does not mean that I'm not an advocate and want to fight for whoever or speak in a group or something like that. So Ibrahim saying maybe he got in the room and spoke up and it wasn't necessarily appreciated, or he was felt out of place. So that's all.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if rooms are going to create rules, right, like that denote some kind of exclusivity or limitations on who's welcome and who's not. I mean, whether I agree with that or not, that's other people's, that's their choice if they want to do that. So I'm not going to get into that, but I think that needs to be enumerated clearly, right? Otherwise, how can you expect people to abide by the rules if they don't know the rules, right? Like, you can't follow a rule you don't know exists. So, like, that's just feels like common sense to me. But, unfortunately, as they say, common sense isn't all that common. Um, but yeah, I mean, that just, and the other thing too is, like, not for nothing, but I think any group, organization, or movement worth its salt, not only welcomes but encourages and requires allyship. And if anybody actively discourages allyship, then they're not really trying to create change or create a movement or create a better, more inclusive world. They're just trying to be angry at somebody, right? So maybe you don't want to be in that space anyway. But I mean, that's my 2 cents. Take those pennies and rub them together for what it's worth.
What does that mean? What happens if you rub 2 pennies together?
I have no idea. It just popped in. It was like 2 cents, pennies, rub them together. I don't know. I have no idea. It doesn't mean anything. It just came out of my mouth. I have no idea.
I once told a teacher, I said something about a wooden nickel, and I got in trouble for it. And I'm telling you, I'm in like 3rd grade, and I said, don't take any wooden nickels. And I don't know. I still don't know what it means, but I got in trouble. So she was like, Ibrahim, I'm sorry, rubbing 2 pennies and wooden nickels. I'm sure that's not your answer you were looking for, but that's all we got here, man.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I think the part that was confusing for me is the part that the person who I believe can make those ground rules is the person that invited me and on stage, and one of the other prominent speakers on Clubhouse who is also a guy. He was brought on stage, but he even never had a chance to talk because they didn't give him an opportunity. So it was just a little confusing, but I kind of learned from that.
Hey, and let me say something too about people hosting rooms and running rooms. If you're like me, you're getting emails, you're getting text, somebody refreshes a room, it looks different on somebody else's screen. So I will say, shit happens. Maybe they were talking in the DMs and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to you next." So who knows? Maybe they ran out of time. Like today, I have a meeting at 11:05. I made it at 11:05 to give us 5 minutes, Tom, to get from here to there. So, Swift, did you have something? Brian P. Swift, you had something to add, and then we're going to go to Michael.
Well, sometimes, like we talked, Dom, to Ibram's point, we start the room talking about, Clubhouse publishing and podcasting, but we have organic conversations throughout that. And we kind of go where the room leads us, because sometimes it leads us to a really interesting place that does dominate the conversation. And if the conversation is starting to hit a lull, we may change it intentionally just to kind of get that mojo going. So that might have been what happened too.
Good point, and I'm about to do just that. Okay, Clubhouse, publishing, podcasting, social media. We do this every Wednesday. We start at 9:30 Eastern. I wrote down a note today, and I need answers on it. And the question is constructive criticism. Can you accept it? How do you handle it? Can you give it? When you give it, are you being a jerk? How do they know you're not being a jerk? All things constructive criticism. Michael, I'm coming to you, but you can also go wherever you want and talk about whatever topic. But I am going back to constructive criticism. You can't take it away from me. Go on, Michael, where you at?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You sound good. That's a fancy camera that you're holding. I always like to look at people's cameras. Looks good. Okay, go on, Michael.
Well, I want to say first, good morning to everybody. And actually, this is my first time back on Clubhouse in probably about 6 months. So I just want to say hey to everybody. Constructive criticism. When I give it to our talents when we're on set filming, I don't say it in a way to degrade them or anything. I just say it to them where it's honest, straight to the point. Because I've been called a jerk on set before because I'm straight to the point. I don't dabble and maybe this. I'm kind of like a straight to the point kind of person, especially when we're rest for time. We're trying to get the shot and get up out of the location, depending on how long we have it. I can take constructive criticism. It actually makes me grow as a storyteller, a film storyteller. So I can give it and I can also receive. It doesn't bother me. I would prefer you to be totally honest with me, so when I walk away, I don't have to question what you were saying because you were straight up with me. And that's my take on it.
I'm right there with you, Michael. I think when I'm on set and I actually tell people who haven't worked with me before on set that I am very direct and I will not or I do not mean to be rude or mean anything by it. I'm being direct for the sake of efficiency and getting the job done, and not out of a lack of respect. So please don't take anything I say personally. And sometimes I will preface a shoot day, sort of do a quick team meeting at the beginning of a shoot day and let everybody know there are going to be times when I am not super polite during the course of the day, and it's for the sake of efficiency and not anything else. So please don't take anything personally. It has nothing to do with my respect for you or for the work that any of us are here doing. It simply has to do with efficiency, and it's in the name of getting the job done quickly. So if I turn to you and I say, do this, it's not because I think you're an errand boy and I think you should hop too. It's because I just need it done and I need to say that quickly, relay that quickly, and move on to the next thing. So I'm there with you. Totally get that. And then the other thing I think in terms of constructive criticism is, I think the easiest way to deal with that is to get buy-in from the person you're giving it to. So one of two things will happen. One, they'll ask for criticism. They'll ask for feedback, which is an invitation for constructive criticism, right? And the other way is to simply ask them if it's okay, if they're open to it, right? To say, do you mind or would you like some feedback? And if they say no, then you don't give it to them. And if they say yes, then you give them the feedback, right? You give them the constructive criticism. But I think it's important to have the receiver of that constructive criticism or that feedback buy in to getting it. It can't come unsolicited or wholly unsolicited or uninvited, or else it'll tend to kind of create a bad reaction from the person you're giving it to. So those are my thoughts. And I see our friend Elle just came up on stage. Elle, what are your thoughts on giving or receiving constructive criticism? How do you approach that?
I'm going to attempt this right now, but I'm going to let you know, if you can't hear me, I am in God's country, fly fishing, and
We hear you. We hear you from live from the river in God's country,
I
fly fishing.
literally getting ready to head out. But I personally love constructive criticism, especially if it's from a trusted source. I know that they have my best intention, my best interest, and their intentions are pure, if that makes sense. Constructive criticism sometimes from people who aren't, you know, who don't have your back, and women will probably, this will resonate with, there's a lot of jealousy or, sort of cattiness. But if you can get past that and you can find that circle of people who you trust, it is invaluable. That's how I see it.
Al, thank you. I believe in that circle of trust, in that imagine, like, if you're paying for a service. You hired somebody because you believe in Tom or you believe in my Motivation Champs, our publishing company. We want you to put out the best possible version of you could possibly do. Now, you can make your own decisions at time. I tell people, your book, your baby. Ultimately, you get to make the final decision. But why would you not take criticism, constructive criticism from people that care about you? You can make the decision and do, like if somebody says I'm talking too fast, okay, that's probably something I should at least look at. Am I talking too fast? Oh, I can't hear you. When we do video, Tom, when we cut, sometimes I was jumping on too quick and I'd be like, hi, this is Dominick. Or I'd jump in and ask a question. Brian, what do you think about this? And the producer said, chill out, basically. You know, we're on, just talk normal. And it's new. It's something, because I was used to clipping everything, and that wasn't how they do it. So I'm working on it. I taken aback, but I know they want us to be better. And maybe I don't want to jump on and go, hey, every time I talk, it's hey, coming out with fire energy. So we will go to let's go. Jamie, if you want to weigh in on Jamie Joyce, if you want to weigh in on constructive criticism, go ahead. Jamie.
I definitely can talk about that. I have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and communication was huge. There's lots of separate classes for that. Coming into nursing and not knowing what constructive criticism was very painful for me because I'd never had that kind of like words spoken to me. You know, my mom was really good at saying good job, but the constructive criticism didn't really start until nursing university. And, you know, if somebody doesn't know how to take it, they can get offended. So I just think being very cautious about what you say. And I loved what you said, how you're going to have a prep meeting. That's what we do in our films up here. Have a prep meeting in the morning, you know, letting everybody know, you know, you can't sit there and say 10 words. I just need you to go get this, right? So just say, you're saying go get it, please, right? Not like blah, 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 blah. It's just constructive. It's a smart way of thinking, but not everybody does that. So if you explain where you're coming from and have a proper open communication with a person, the constructive part of the criticism doesn't sound like criticism. Criticism's a bad word. It's you're wanting to be constructive with your thoughts, really, not criticize people. But I'm Jamie Hill, and that's what I think about it.
Jamie, thank you. And that's a good twist. How could we twist that from not saying criticism to critique or something to
Constructive feedback.
constructive feedback. There we go. Okay, we are going to meet. Let's go. We're going to meet Tasha and Eric, and then as always, I will turn it over to Tom, put the pressure on him to wrap us up because I just don't like that kind of pressure in my life. So, Tasha, you hear some of the stuff we're talking about, weigh in or ask a question. Go on.
Hey, I would love to weigh in on this because it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I love helping people gain perspective, which to me is constructive criticism. It's all about helping people see things from each other's points of view and how we can cooperate better. And I love the fact that, Jamie, you really stress the word constructive because there's constructive criticism or there's just criticism, and they're received differently. And if you get really good at the constructive part, then everybody benefits. And so I use a lot of puzzle analogies when I'm sharing. And so when you look at a jigsaw puzzle, sometimes if you've ever put one together, you press pieces in the incorrect spot. It looks like it goes there. You know, you push it in, and then you find out later that that piece really didn't fit. And that's where criticism can come in. You can say, well, that was a complete waste of time. You know, you were taking up space somewhere where you shouldn't have, or you didn't qualify, or you were a mistake. And I really stress great communicators that can communicate the constructive part of the criticism will help people realize that they were not mistakes. They were just misfits. So you pop that piece out, rearrange it, find the correct spot, let them know, hey, this is a better fit for you. And if you can communicate that well, people will receive the constructive part of the criticism. And then again, everybody benefits.
Tasha, thank you. That's a good, you should clip yourself, share that, get good at the constructive part. It's a very, I receive your tips. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Tom, we're going to go to Eric, and the pressure's on. This wrap up better be good for Eric. How are you doing? Let me see. I've never met Eric before, but now I'm following. My mission is help coaches and leaders clarify their message so they can grow their impact. Okay, Eric, good stuff. Keep up the good work. Eric, weigh in on all this, my friend. Drop a tip, ask a question.
I guess, and I'll say the same thing I tell every one of our team members when we sit down and do that initial hiring. Don't assume I meant to offend you. Ask me if I did. So often I hear these people are like, oh, he offended me and he was being so critical. It's like, maybe you didn't hear clearly what I said. And I'll do this with my kids. I'll often wake up and I'm like, do you think your brother woke up this morning with the sole intent of hurting your feelings and making you feel shitty? And they'll be like, well, no. So maybe you just didn't understand what they were saying or how they were saying it. Why don't you ask questions to clarify instead of climbing in your shell and saying, poor me? And so I think sometimes we become attuned to all of the diversity and sensitivity, and everybody's got to be aware of everybody else's. The road travels both ways. And so, like I tell my clients, I tell my team members, don't assume I meant to offend you unless you ask. And if I did, I'll be clear and tell you I did. And if I wasn't, then we have a point of discussion and growth. And so I'll leave it there.
That's a straight shooter, man. We appreciate you. Tom, we met some great people today on this room on this fine Wednesday and beautiful Wednesday in October. So would you like to take us out, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. We did. And I think Eric made a great point there. And actually I was thinking before he said it, I was already thinking, often people forget that communication is a two-way street, right? That whether that communication is person to person or it is via digital communication platforms like Clubhouse or the live streaming that we're doing right now on different social media platforms. There are opportunities on all those places to leave comments, to follow or unfollow, to like or unlike. Those are also means of communications, right? So communication is a two-way street. And it's incumbent on both the person initiating the communication, on us, right, as people who create this room and hold this space and live stream it out, to do our best to be clear in our communication. But it's also incumbent on the listeners, or the receivers or the consumers of this content, on the other side of this conversation, on the other side of this communication, to let us know if they're offended by something, if something bothers them, or if they're excited and happy about something, conversely. It's incumbent upon them to let us know, to engage in that conversation, right? And just like Eric was talking about with his kids, asking them if they think it was their brother's sole intention to get up that in the morning and make them feel terrible. The answer is no, right? Just like it's never my intention when I get up in the morning to offend or upset anybody, or to make anybody feel less than by anything that I say. And so all I ask is that people, not only give me, but give everyone the benefit of the doubt in their communications, and take that beat, take that breath, consider that they may have misunderstood or misinterpreted what was being said, and ask the question, speak up, right? Make your feelings known and be an active participant, right, in the conversation. in both in this space and in other spaces that we inhabit throughout the day. So that's my thought, my closing thought. I'll leave it there. Be an active participant. Don't be passive. Be an active participant in the conversation that is your day-to-day life. And that's it for today, for this Wednesday, this beautiful Wednesday in October, as Dom put it. Thank you all for being here. As always, we appreciate everyone being a part of this space, supporting us, supporting each other, sharing your wisdom, and listening to me ramble on and on about all kinds of stuff. So thanks very much. Thanks for running the room, Dom. And we will see you guys next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Thanks again.